I was born with a growth at the base of my back. Now, at the time, it was initially diagnosed as spina bifida, but 2 hours later, I peed, and 42 years ago, that was how you got the diagnosis of whether you had spina bifida or not. Now, that's a whole story in itself, and if you ever connect one-to-ones, then I'll bore you with that some other time. But the one thing it will, the impact it had on me is I spent the first 6 months of my life in and out of hospital. My mother used to tell me actually heartbreaking stories of the fact that that I used to reject her over the nurses, because basically those were the ones that I was familiar with. And in any case, I then had to have 2 further operations, one just before school and then one later around age 7. Since then, I've been operation free for that particular ailment. Now, what all this was doing to me was turning me into a very kind and very sensitive child. It's difficult to pinpoint specifically why, but a theory I have centers really around the fact that I had to place, before I was even aware of it, I had to place so much trust in so many different things that I think that just made me an automatically trusting person. Certainly one that more so than perhaps children of a similar age who are not having to go through the same kind of experience. It definitely made me quite weak and vulnerable, I'd say. Kindness was my way really to kind of build a comfort blanket around me. I showed people basically that I wasn't a threat, and that I was able to build this strong network around me, even without realizing that I was actually doing it. Of course, at that age, some kids are evil little blighters. So not everyone sees kindness for what it is. In some instances, that was treated as a weakness, and I suffered a little bit at the hands of some bullying, but it's not an overriding memory for me, and it definitely didn't dominate my life. But what it did do was keep my confidence low. So I wasn't backing up the kindness with any kind of confidence at that stage of my life. I was a shy, timid, incredibly sensitive little thing. I used to cry if someone looked at me in the wrong way. You could argue nothing's really changed. I remember once being offered the under-11 football captaincy. It was given to me basically because I was the best player on the team. I accepted it as a very proud moment. And then on the day of my captaincy debut, I remember I suffered a monumental crisis of confidence. And had to give it to somebody else. I didn't get the opportunity to captain again on the back of that, but the reality was I wasn't ready. I trusted others more than I trusted myself. It gave me, I suppose, one of the early lessons of my life that the best performer doesn't necessarily make the best leader. But again, that's a topic for another day. So why is all this relevant? I can hear you asking. Well, it leads me to what I classify as my kindness pillars. There's 8 of them in total so far. As I said, this is a work in progress, but you'll be delighted to hear that I'm only going to cover 3 today very, very quickly, just centered around stories of me, just so you get a sense of who I am and why this is now a very relevant subject for me. So we move to kindness pillar number 1, which is trust. Kindness is difficult to commit to if you're not in a trusting position with the person or the situation that you find yourself in. You also have to trust yourself, but that's part of self-kindness. And actually, the lovely Gina Gardner is going to talk about self-kindness in a section later on. Going back to my little football story, I trusted other people greatly, but I'd yet to learn self-trust, something that I'd actually flirt with a little bit in my 20s before fully committing to it about 3 or 4 years ago. So let's move straight to kindness pillar number 2, empathy. Empathy is, again, it's not something I'm consciously aware of developing. And I'd ask you actually to have a think about this yourself. Who here would regard themselves as empathic? Show of hands. Do you recall developing this trait? I'm genuinely interested to know. I think it is genuinely one of those things that I think nobody is aware that they developed it. I genuinely believe that empathy is one of my gifts. It's always come pretty naturally. The ability to put yourself in the shoes of others and see the world through their eyes. It's one of the reasons why I think I connected very quickly with customer service early in my career. I joined a luxury cruise liner as a receptionist with no or next to no experience at the age of 21. I got the job before a lot of people who were older than me and far more experienced. And I think even that ability to put yourself into the shoes of the person you're dealing with really helped me be a very, very strong interviewer, or interviewee, sorry, and got me the job probably before I was ready, to be honest. But the one thing that did happen to me was I wanted that job so much. That was my purpose back then. I remember it very, very clearly. 21 years old, get paid to travel around the world. What's not to love? I was quickly I suppose it's one of the first instances that I can really remember excelling. They called me little problem solver Phil. Effectively, I was the one that they used to send all the severe problems to on reception desk. And when I say severe, I'm talking about overcooked broccoli, toilets that don't flush properly, really big world problems that we are. But nevertheless, it's amazing what some people can get irate at. I got it. Well, what was the reason that they gave me that? I just had this empathy for situations. When you have empathy, it disarms a situation. If you can see things through the eyes of your opponent, your aggressor, the guest, whoever it is or whatever it is that you want to call them, even when their opinion is far removed from your own, it presents a much better opportunity for a successful outcome. It also means that you'll inevitably be far more respectful of the situation, and critically, as a result of that, maintain your poise. I got promoted very, very quickly. As a result, I think I started to trust myself an awful lot more. Move to pillar 3, humility. So what is humility? Now, this is a difficult one. It's actually a really, really tricky word to give context to. My favorite, actually, when I was doing research was on Wikipedia. Humility, the quality of being humble. Wow, groundbreaking. It really, I suppose, at the end of the day, humility means different things to different people. I went to the Cambridge Dictionary. It's a good place to go if you're really struggling for definitions, and I think they get close. Their definition is the feeling or attitude that you have no special importance that makes you better than others. Now, as I say, I think they get close, but that doesn't cover it for me. So I made up my own. I nicked a little bit of theirs and then gave it some spit and polish. Let's put it that way. The feeling or attitude that your special gifts do not make you better than others. The reason why I added special gifts, because you then have to have the confidence to acknowledge the fact that you have special gifts. All of us do. You maybe just don't know what they are yet. I mean, to be honest, I'm still looking for a lot of mine, but they're being presented to me as I go through this journey. But always remembering that whatever your special gifts are, they do not make you better than anyone else. If you start there, I think you'll never be too far off. Also, if you think this way, you're always likely to continue to work hard towards getting better. If you're not humble about your surroundings, life, etc., then I just don't think you can start anything from a position of kindness. In the end, I also quite like C.S. Lewis' attempt. He was pretty good with words. Humility is not thinking of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. He is a bit of a genius. So I work in recruitment, and why is that relevant? Well, reputationally, recruitment is not got a lot of humility flying around in it. I recruit for the hospitality industry, which at the moment, quite frankly, is on its knees in the midst of the pandemic that we find ourselves in. I've worked through other economic crises before, but this is the first time that I do it as a business owner. In previous companies, I can remember statements such as, I need you to go blast the phones, I need you to go sharpen your elbows, You've got to shout louder than everyone else, push people out the way to go and get the business. And I just think, where's the humility in this? Humility is a long game in life and in business. I think it's probably the reason why it took me 10 years to start a business, probably that, and the fact that I had to learn my craft and make mistakes. But to this day, it still amazes me that remaining humble can be a huge point of difference in business. That's wrong, but it can be a real game changer for your business. But in any case, so those are three little glimpses into who I am. So I've got other pillars up for consideration, short form this time, no long stories, you'll be glad to hear. So the first one is confidence. Now, we touched upon that earlier. If you don't have the courage to be kind and believe in what you're trying to achieve through kindness, then it's a tricky place to start. Trust me, as someone who's battled with confidence until the last 3 or 4 years, it's much more difficult to make the change you want to see if you don't back it up with confidence. Awareness. Being aware of the person, situation, or whatever it is that's in front of you is critical to the success of kindness. Also, being aware of the power that your own impact in any given situation is, in any more than you think. Awareness is a huge part of that. Openness. Equally, being open to another perspective is incredibly important in remaining kind. It's not that you have to accept the perspective, but you have to be open to the prospect that you can't know everything about everything. The more open you are to that, the more you learn, the more you grow as a result, and the more opportunities for making change through kindness you'll see. Forgiveness. Now that one seems obvious, right? But as a species, we're phenomenally proud. It really can get in the way. You could all think of a time whereby your own pride has got in your way of making progress in something. Just remember that everything is forgivable, no matter how awful it might seem. I know that that's also a very bold statement, and of course, much easier said than done. But actually, in my research and doing this, I stumbled across some amazing stories of forgiveness that really get you to think about its true possibility and its role that it has to play in all of this. And don't forget, within this, you've got to forgive yourself. You're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to get stuff wrong. You're going to have moments where you don't present kindness in the way that you want, but you've got to be able to forgive yourself and move past it. Otherwise, you'll just get stuck. And then the last one is self-care. And that's actually my favorite pillar of them all. But as discussed, the amazing Gina Gardner is going to discuss a little bit more on that later on. All I will say is, please don't forget to be kind to yourself. All the really great stuff happens after that. So why should we be kind? Now, that's definitely not a question that I'm going to answer in any great depth today, because that's probably a topic for a full day workshop or something like that. But in any case, for me, it's basically because I believe that kindness can fix an awful lot of things in the world. It's contagious, and I don't know about you, but it's also something that I'd happily catch. If you demonstrate kindness to someone, they feel a physiological and almost a chemical reaction. Even when you witness acts of kindness or talk about kindness, that physiological reaction releases something called oxytocin. Simon Sinek, who we're all a fan of on this group, speaks very eloquently about that on YouTube. You can go and find stuff about that on there. But I think just very, very basically, kindness can improve your personal life. It can improve your work life. And even if you think big enough, it can improve the world that we live in. The most simple reason for kindness for me is that it reciprocates. It comes back. You give, and it just amazes me to this day that the amount of things that I enter into where I'm expecting nothing in return, and then it comes back tenfold. I think that's possibly one of the most powerful points of them all. But all of these you've got to go out and experience for yourself. It's one thing to listen to a Scotsman who sounds a little bit like a boring Andrew Murray talk to you about it, but go out and experience it for yourself. Be kind to people. I promise you, you'll reap the benefit, but remember the long game with this. So I was going to show you a short video at this point to kind of summarize that. However, there's a slight technical problem with that, but we had a technical problem with that before I even started talking today on this. So, but I believe Linda's going to drop the link to the video into the chat. It's just a lovely, warm and fuzzy little video, and I hope you enjoy it if you get the opportunity to watch it. So, what are your kindness pillars? Now, how am I going to do this? I was going to ask you to go onto Mentimeter. I haven't thought about this in all of this. Stand by. So, if I could ask you all to go to www.menti, that's MENTI.com, and enter the code 9318544, 9318544, and I'll just ask you to enter in your what kindness pillars are important to you. What do you think is important if you're going to be successful at kindness? And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. I've also just realized that I can't actually share the results on my screen.
Another way of doing it, maybe, Phil, is to get people to write into the chat space, and then we can perhaps create a Menti another time or later on.
Yeah, perfect. Let's do that then. Yeah, if you could just drop into the chat 3 or 4 things or one thing. You can take inspiration from what I've said. If you've got something that's overriding yourself, then please just drop it into the chat. I'm genuinely keen to know, because I'll definitely will have missed some. So there's a few coming through. Also, bless you, some of you are doing it on the Menti, and I've got it live in front of me here.
Oh, that's quick. Brilliant.
Empathy is coming up, understanding, consideration, thoughtfulness, care, selflessness, patience, love, tolerance, trust. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, they're all massively important. I was just genuinely curious to know what your thoughts were on that. I've also realized it's got very dark in my room, so just bear with me one second.
What I love as well is that a lot of people are putting these things in and they consider it a quality, and as you say, the pillars, but at the same time, in our world, we kind of consider this part of your genius, because if that's what you think you've been born with and that's the center of who you are, then, you know, if you have humility, if you have empathy, and you can't remember not having it, then that is a genius that you need to be sharing with other people and getting it out there and practicing it and making the most of it, because that's a gift that you've been given.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing that. And finally, just before well done for making it this far, by the way. Thanks for staying awake this long. I was going to actually, I meant to do this at the beginning, was I was going to promise you all what I think is the world's most powerful question. And it's this is a funny one, because I think it's probably taken me this long in my life to really be completely open to inspiration. Inspiration is everywhere. And it comes in so many different forms, and probably least when you least expect it. I think the phrase I came up with, if you're not looking for something, it's amazing how much you find. And it, you know, that can be in the music that you listen to, a walk that you went on, the company that you keep, a movie that you saw, a poem or whatever, a book. You know, there's inspiration everywhere. I remember Jill posting actually on the group once a tree in autumnal blossom, let's call it that. You know, and it's just the beauty and inspiration is everywhere. And I took this question that I think is the most powerful question in the world, I took inspiration from something. It was actually a TV series on Prime called New Amsterdam. I don't know if anybody's come across this.
Yeah.
It's an emotional roller coaster of a medical drama. If you're not familiar with it, I genuinely can't get through an episode without bawling my eyes out. But there's some amazing inspiration in there, none more so than the lead, Dr. Max Goodwin. And his simple question that he asks everybody to make progress is, how can I help? I think the power that has to make change, because if you think about the context of the question, it's coming at it from, I'm not expecting anything in return. What can I do to help this situation? If we all led with that, just imagine what a difference we could make.
Mm.
I thank you very much.